evening and taking part in our second open house for the Transportation Implementation Plan for Como Park. My name is Michelle Furrer. I'm the campus manager for the campus for Como Park Zoom Conservatory through the City of St. Paul Parks and Recreation. And this project really started last winter when we developed what we call a Project Advisory Committee. We have quite a few of our members from our CAC here. And I'm just going to ask them to either stand up or wave their hands so that everybody can see some of the members. We've got representation from both the city as well as the neighborhood, some of the partners within Como Regional Park that have been meeting monthly, sometimes more than once a month over the last few, since February. And what our plan is tonight is to go over some of the concepts we've developed for the Transportation Implementation Plan. We started with getting feedback last April when we met, and some of you were here for that. And we solicited feedback from some of our surveys through the middle of May. And so a lot of what you're seeing are results of some of those feedback that we've been getting. And tonight it's really a purpose for us to check in and see if we're on the mark and where we're at. We have multiple concepts for a variety of different areas of the issues that we developed. And when you came in, you got a summary of some of the recommendations that kimley-horn put together. So I'm going to pass it over to Jessica Laabs and Jeanette. I'll have her introduce herself. And they're going to go through the information that they've gathered and sort of lay out the recommendations so it gives you a little bit of context. And then afterwards, we're going to set up stations and you'll be able to ask questions, and there's some surveys, so I'll let Jessica explain all of that. So, thanks, Michelle. Just briefly, we're going to take no more than a half hour for this presentation because we want to give you some more time to discuss things and take a look at what's on the wall. But what we're going to talk about in the presentation is just reiterate the study purpose and then the purpose of the meeting tonight, what we're looking for from you, go through some of that background data and issues that Michelle referenced. In the process we've been through up to this point. Jeanette is going to take over and talk about some of the existing conditions and the analysis that we've done. And she's going to touch on the recommendations, which are what's all around you on the walls. The preliminary recommendations are concepts. There are different options for your feedback. And then briefly touch on the next steps, what we're doing next. The purpose of this study is to provide recommendations to address the transportation issues in Como Park. Obviously that encompasses a lot of different issues, and you shared that feedback with us back in April. But what we also wanted to point out is that we are considering the current conditions, but also known future plans. So a lot of you are well aware of the recent pool plans. That's a plan we considered in this, and you see some of those concepts on the maps. I also want to mention that we do have some information on this table up here. That's background information for you to take a look at, and a lot of that is also available on the website now or will be starting tomorrow. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to update you on our progress, to present those preliminary options and recommendations, and then to get your feedback. As you're looking at these exhibits, we want to know what you think. I'll talk a little more about the comment sheets, the surveys a little bit later, but we have a couple of different ways for you to provide feedback tonight. And the way we're going to use that is, once we leave here tonight, we're going to put together a comprehensive package, a plan that includes each of these 5 elements. And then we're going to start talking about phasing and staging and how funding affects some of these options and the feasibility of some of these options. We reviewed 27 or maybe even more previous studies and documents. There have been several done for different aspects of the park. Another thing we're looking to do with this study is kind of bring those together for one whole plan for the entire park. Some of those recommendations from the previous plans have not been implemented. We kind of started our running list of ideas based on those past recommendations that have not been implemented. We actually listed them out as something to start from. Obviously there's a reason some of them were not implemented, but some of them still have validity. So we started our list there. At the open house back in April, we had some large exhibits on the wall. We asked you to mark on there, make notes, tell us what your issues are, tell you where your problem areas are. And then we also conducted a survey at the open house and online. We received over 1,800 surveys in total, or actually even more than that, which I'll talk about later. We did some on-site surveying as well. But in those surveys, there was a place at the end where you could just write your comments. Out of those comments came a lot of good ideas about potential solutions. So we took those and we added those to our list, our sort of running list of ideas. As I mentioned, that survey, over 1,800 collected online, 81 at the open house. And then on-site, near the campus and at Como Town, there were actually over 1,000 collected. Como Town collected a lot. We took a sample of about 380. And I'll just talk a little bit about the results. Cumulatively, this is kind of speaking generally about all the different groups that we surveyed. There were about 63% of the respondents that were not residents of St. Paul, 37% that were residents. The area, or the place that people said they visited most, were the attractions, which are the zoo, the conservatory, Como Town. Neighbors, which were the results of more of the open house surveys, use it more for passive recreation, walking around the lake, walking your dog, that sort of thing. Most of the respondents visited between 1 and 11 times per year. Neighbors visit more often, obviously, up to 1 or more times per week. The zoo is the area most often visited from the total survey. For the neighbors, Como Lake was a very popular spot. The issues that came up the most, and we started out with kind of a list of 11 issues that we asked you all about, and we gave you votes and asked you to vote and weight your votes. Parking supply, parking demand, green space were the ones that came up most consistently across all groups. Historic elements, traffic safety, and transit were also important to you. And I would like you to know there are more detailed results available online, just posted today, and there's also a few copies on the table up here if you want to take a closer look at the results from the online surveys or from the more neighborhood type surveys and then the on-site surveys. They're all kind of divided up. We also, as Michelle said, have been working closely with the Project Advisory Committee on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. They helped us review the background data. They provided a lot of great input from the neighborhoods as well as the city and some of the vendors within the park. They also conducted some of their own neighborhood type surveys, which we also took into consideration. And then we also asked them to brainstorm. At this point, with the feedback we received from you back in April, we had kind of narrowed things down to the 5 categories that you see here tonight. The roadway concepts, pedestrian bicycle, parking, shuttle transit, and then wayfinding and signage were the 5 categories. We asked the PAC to brainstorm solutions. We added their input to our list of ideas. Also, a very important item that the PAC was undertaking during this time is coming up with goals. What are their goals for the project? And on the handout that hopefully you picked up on the way in, on one side are the goals and criteria. The top 3 that the PAC agreed were their primary goals are to preserve green space to the greatest extent possible, to meet parking demand of the existing and planned park facilities for the average summer peak, which Jonette is going to talk a little more about, increase mode share of transit, pedestrian, and bicycle to the park, and increase the capture rate, which is the percentage of the total visitors to the park, using the remote parking and the shuttle facility. After all of this data input, we came up with a summary of issues, and this is just a very broad brush of the issues, but what we heard was there's not enough parking close to where people want to visit. The shuttle system is underutilized, so people didn't even really know a lot about it. There are concerns about losing green space. It's very important to people to protect the integrity of the resources in the park. traffic congestion is a concern. People circulating, trying to find a parking space, pedestrian safety, how that ties in. And then that they felt there is limited support of other modes. There can be improvements in the transit and the bicycle and pedestrian facilities. As a parallel activity, we were looking at the existing conditions in the park. And so Jonette is going to take us through some of that more data-driven analysis and what's going on in the park today.